So, hello and welcome everyone to the Around the World webinar from the Communication Working Group of the MCAA. And I'm Ashish Avasti, the Chair of Communication Working Group. And today we'll be talking about how can you boost your research using the EOSC or EOSC EU Node. And we have a very special guest with us, Spiros Athanasiou, who will, sorry for butchering your name if I did, who is a senior project manager at Athena Research and Innovation Center and an active supporter of open science and open knowledge. I'll leave you to it, Spiros, to introduce yourselves. And also, following that, you should start with for those who don't know what EOSC or EOSC is and how can it help boost their research. Take it away.
Thank you for the intro. So let me share my screen and also introduce myself. I am Spiros Athanasiou from the Athena Research Center. We are a research center in Greece. Today in this meeting, I'm also representing the European Commission because we are contractors of the European Commission, offering to the European research community as large the EOSC EU Node. And I will tell you a few more things about what the EOSC Federation is, what the EOSC EU Node is, and what kind of services you and every other researcher in Europe can have access to for free in the EOSC EU Node. So let's do some very basic intro on what is the European Open Science Cloud, as we call it, the EOSC, right? As it says in the title, it is an evolving European ecosystem for data-driven research. So what is EOSC? It's a policy, first of all, direction from the European Commission for more than a decade now, in order to accelerate the adoption of open science all over Europe. It's one of the pillars of our digital strategy in Europe. It is also an evolving ecosystem, right, of organizations, of systems, of people for data-driven research based on the acknowledgement that pretty much everything we do as researchers is around data manipulation, management, analysis. Moving on, and this is where we enter the realm of beyond policy to technology and platforms and instruments. The EOSC is being formed as an open, trusted federation of data and digital services. So the big vision is that it's one common space where you can find all the open research data across Europe. Science services to use could be infrastructure services. So for example, cloud computing, storage, virtual research environments, Jupyter notebooks, the lot, which are then provided by nodes, right? Different organizations all over Europe. The whole concept is as we in Europe have freedom of movement, freedom of goods, also have a freedom of research across. So we have access to data and services across Europe without any restrictions or borders. And EOSC is what we also say the common European data space for research and innovation. Now, the word data space, it's kind of reserved in EC lingua nomenclature. There are several data spaces in operation or being developed right now. For example, one of them is Destiny, where you can find essentially digital twins and environmental data for the world, not only Europe. We have the upcoming health data space, which builds upon a policy and legal framework around in Europe and will allow researchers to have trusted access to sensitive health data in order to perform their research, as well as several others for mobility, for the Green Deal, and everything. So EOSC, if you want to picture it this way, is one data space in which you can find any data including publications, including software and services for research. Now, EOSC is governed in a way by three bodies, what we usually call the tripartite governance. These are the ones that establish the future directions of what happens around EOSC. First of all, we have the European Commission itself on behalf of the European Union. Then we have all the member states across Europe and associated countries with Erasmus Work Program. which are involved in the steering board of EOSC. And then we have on the top right the EOSC Association. Essentially, this is a big association with hundreds and hundreds of universities, research centers, research performing organizations representing end user stakeholder interest. So through this three bodies, collectively, the future directions and visions of EOSC is shaped. Now, the EOSC Federation, as we like to call it, right, an actual platform, a system, was launched, right, just a couple of years ago. So the first node of this federation is the EOSC EU Node, and I will tell you more about it. It's the platform we provide, and we provide it on behalf of the European Commission. Launched in October 2024 in our symposium. Then in March 2025, a year ago, we had a kickoff workshop in which we had 13 new nodes, candidate nodes, as we call them. And you can see that we have national nodes coming up, NFDI, for example, from Germany, or the SURF from the Netherlands, as well as thematic nodes, research infrastructures for which you may are familiar with, aware of, such as Elixir, EMBL, etc. Each and every one of them has decided to also form a node, participate in this emerging federation, offer their data, services to all European researchers, no matter where they are. Now, the European Federation is growing. It has been officially launched in November 2025. It's still not in production, right? Only the EOSC node is currently in production. No more nodes are coming up. We have more node candidates coming up in 2026, 14 more, so it's going to be quite a lot. And the whole concept, for those that like the architectural view of things, is built as a system of systems. So the idea is that every node in this federation has autonomy. It's a system in its own, and they have decided to use the same interoperability standards in order to provide a common, coherent view to end users. Now, moving on to the EOSQ node, and you will also find links in the slides, and I invite you to also visit the EOSQ node and use it as end users, right? Some first important points to clarify. So the EOSQ node is the first node of this EOSC Federation. It is commissioned by the European Commission, specifically DG Connect, and it's operated by us and the consortium we represent. We are what we call managed service contractors, right? We offer this as a service on behalf of the European Commission to everyone. So the scope we have established, because we have, for example, thematic research infrastructures or services. Um, we provide a European level, so cross-border, multidisciplinary, multinational scientific service portfolio for all research users and citizen scientists. So we don't have a specific thematic targeting or geographic targeting. In contrast, we serve pretty much everyone. Um, the platform itself, right, has been specified provision, and it's currently being operated based on the experience of research project, EC funded research project, in which the EOS, let's say, foundations were built from the collaborative effort of the community. But us, as contractors, we provide them with under a very strict quality, security, operational perspective. So it's an actual production service. Its uptime is 99.5%, extremely high for a typical scientific service. It's, for all intents and purposes, a European Commission service, and this means trusted, secure, dependable, auditable for everything you may need. Now, we also serve the EOSQ node as a blueprint for other nodes, the 13 plus 14 I just mentioned. The whole idea is that based on what we offer, our architecture, our software, other nodes may decide to follow the same example, perhaps adopt some of the software we already have, which, by the way, is open source. And you can find it, download it. If you're interested, deploy it, experiment it with it, and deploy their own nodes, right? Again, this is something we provide in order to help them grow, but every node in this federation is autonomous. And The EOSC Node also provides what we call federating capabilities. I don't want you to don't want us to focus on this. The whole idea is we enable other nodes to integrate within the federation and again help them grow. So our main target groups, and this is where you also come aboard, are researchers and research groups across disciplines for which there are no dedicated, let's say, research services, research infrastructures, or they may not have their own institutional access to cloud computing or other environments, right? As well as citizen scientists for discovering research output. Our target group is also scientific service providers. For example, anyone that offers a relevant scientific service to a dedicated group, they can come to the SQ node and be, as we call, onboarded, essentially enrich the service portfolio we provide. Now, the SQ node is the current focal point of the EOSC Federation, but it's only one node, right? The federation itself is not yet in production. It's in an interim phase right now. So you will not be finding other nodes in production right now, but you will pretty soon in the future. And every one of them will come with their own service offerings. For example, you may find a node in the future that's dedicated to neuroscience, or you may find several nodes that offer, let's say, 5 nodes that offer access to virtual machines or Jupyter notebooks. This, as a European researcher, will allow you to select the service you want and use it according to a harmonized access policy. Now, moving on, a few data just to have an idea of the growth we had in these 2 and 1 year and a half, almost 2 years, as is, you know. So we have completed almost a year and a half in production. In this time frame, we've had, and we have more than 5.5 thousand actually active users and 32,000 visitors across the world. And it's interesting to also note over here that we have visits from the United States, as also the UK, right? Again, EU 27 plus associated countries. Um, we have some access groups, what AP level is over there. I'll just try to translate it. So a third of our users are not really associated with an organization. Um, a fourth of our users is faculty in some sort of university or research center. And we have junior researchers, let's say 1 in 2. DSQ Node provides what we call credits. We will see them in a bit. Essentially, is a way to offer service to the community. We've had an uptime of 99.5%, no downtime, a bunch of activity in our help desk. So you will see that when you start, if you start using the SQ node, your peers, you can always contact the help desk. We always answer at least within a few hours and try to address your problem. We have introduced in the broader, let's say, landscape of research infrastructures and service providers in Europe, some new things. The first is what we call the automated access policies and a credit system. Now, this now sounds foreign. In a couple of slides, maybe it's a bit more intuitive to understand. What we do is when a user comes, we don't ask them to register. We don't ask them to provide us any information. The user comes with their own home organization credentials, institutional credentials. Let's say you work or are a PhD student in a university. You have a university institutional account. We understand this. You log in using this credential, right? We understand that you are a student or a PhD or a professor. And based on this, automatically, without having to ask for access, negotiate, obviously not pay, you have access to services, things you can use. Uh, Now, we also know that users are still learning the offerings of the EOSQ node, right? It's still a system for which its user base is growing and growing. We have several instruments. We will go through them in a bit to help scientific collaboration, such as forming groups, having your own cloud storage, or collaborative environment, these kind of things. And we over the this period, we have already seen more expressed needs from our end users, which is extremely important as well. Now, moving on, starting from the some basic things about the EOSC Node, how we authenticate users. So, as a user, wherever you are, you don't need to create yet another account. You don't need to register. Just click login, and you will see over there that it says which organization in Europe do you come from, which university. You just type in and log in using your home organization credentials. So that's an important thing. What happens after that is we tap into this AAI authentication authorization federation. What we have done is based on Mike's ID and EDU Gain, a worldwide federation of 27 million users, we allow users that are specifically from an EU organization plus from associated countries to be automatically logged in and identified. We also support logging in using EU login. This is for the European Commission's own authentication service. It's quite a substantial element in this because in the near future you will be able to use this with your national IDs, for example, or passports. Putting that aside, then when you come and visit us, we check what we call your user attributes. So your affiliation and which organization you're from, right? The country of this organization, your role in this organization. This is shared with the EOSQ node automatically based on the EDU Gain Federation. And based on this, we give you access to services. You will also see that we have single sign-on for all services, right? So you just click and you don't have to register again or log in again or log in again. And all of this is exactly the same experience you will have in the future in other nodes. So the idea is that you visit the USK node, you log in once, and when you visit the Swiss node, the Finnish node, or the neuroscience node, you're just automatically identified, sign on without having to do anything, completely opaque to you. Now, another key concept of the ESQ node is what I briefly mentioned earlier, the concept of credits, right? So when the ESQ node started, we wanted to give away a big chunk of compute and storage resources to the research community across Europe. But we wanted to do in a fair manner, transparent to everyone. So this is what we call demand management. How do we manage this user demand in a way that is fair so that you don't have to pay or beg or do anything else that someone may be doing to get access to compute and storage resources? So we have introduced the concept of credits. That is the virtual currency, let's say, of the SQ node. Um, Credits express the relative cost of services, but they don't have any monetary value. You cannot buy them. These are given to you. And most users are already familiar with the use of credits in commercial offerings, right? So you buy credits in order to spend them to do something. So a service in the SQ node, let's say virtual machines or Jupyter notebooks, has its cost expressed in credits. So for example, by visiting the ESQ node, you get a number of credits for free, and you can spend them, for example, in Jupyter notebooks. And let's say the cost is 2 credits per hour. So you know exactly how much it costs, how much you have, and you can plan your own effort. Now, every user is allocated free credits. They have their own personal digital wallet. Users can spend their credits as they need. For example, more storage or more notebooks or whatever. And every category of users, we'll talk about in a bit, get the same number of credits replenished every 3 months. So you visit, you get your credits, you may consume them or not. And at the end of the 3 month period, you'll get exactly the same amount again. So you can continue using the SQ node and its services again and again. Now, this is what we call the credit economy, how many credits you have, how much it costs per everyone. Changes, it has evolved. So we make it easier for more users to get more access to the services. This means giving more credits as well as lowering the cost. Now, user access policies, right? So, how we authorize a user that comes in to access and spend the credits. This is again not an entirely automated process based on their affiliation. So we have one role which we call investigator. So if you are from an EU27 or Horizon Europe organization with the attribute faculty, right, or coming from the European Commission from the Joint Research Center, you will get 2,000 credits and access to all the services, all the offerings. This is what we would call senior researchers. Then we have the collaborators. So if you come in the EOSC node, again, EU27 associated countries, these organizations, and you are an employee or staff, right? You will get 1,000 credits and access to most of the services. And then we have observers. We only have view access. The idea is that if you have someone from the US, for example, coming in, or a student, an actual undergrad student, at least give them the chance to search for data publications, everything. They are open after all. Have an overview of how it looks like, and quite possibly, if they are a member of a research group or if they are invited by a senior researcher, being able to use the EOSC Node services. And this introduces to the concept of groups. So every user, the senior ones, investigators, can create groups in the ESQ node. Groups can share resources, can share credits, can work on the same thing using the service of the ESQ node. So they actually support the research lifecycle. Plus, a more recent thing, we also give out credit grants, as this is what we call them, for EU-funded project. So keep that in mind. If you are an EU funded project, research project, and you contact our help desk, or if you visit inside your user space in the EOSC node, you can claim and get 40,000 credits to use for your own project, right? And over here, if you visit the site, you can see exactly the different user roles, access policy levels, and what they can and they cannot do per category. Now, regarding the services, and I'm gonna try to run a little bit, the senior ones, investigators, have full access to all the services. They can also create and manage groups. The more junior ones have less and less access to the services. If we visit the right section, you will see again over here exactly what kind of service you have per category. So if you're a senior researcher, for example, you can do anything. You have your user space, your file storage, you have access to any Jupyter flavor of Jupyter notebooks, small, medium, large, with GPUs, virtual machines, containers, right? You can create groups, right? And even collaborators have the capability to use interactive notebooks, virtual machines. So we try to give out more, even to lesser access policies. Now, let's say that you are a recipient of a Marie Curie grant in Europe actively, right? Or you coordinate something. And you could have PhDs, postdoc, you could be a professor, you have a project. Now, our user access policy, that is the legal text that you can find in the footer of the EOSC node, does not specifically accommodate MCSA. So we don't say something specific for this kind of projects and recipients, only for researchers in Europe and only for EEC funded projects in Europe, right? However, even if we don't explicitly support MCSA, the access policy itself is quite flexible to support all of the recipients of Marie Curie projects grant, as well as any kind of collaboration you may have, because you are an EU-funded project. And our help desk, right, we always assess exceptions and requests. There have been countless times where a user has contacted us through the help desk and just mentioned that, I'm working for this project, I'm doing this thing, I'm a Marie Curie fellow or I'm a PhD over there, and I would like access to the EOSC node. We will give you access. So we're ready to accommodate these cases even if we don't explicitly support them. Just reach out to the help desk. Now, one challenge we foresee for the adoption of the EOSC Node, at least in its current access policy, has to do with the seniority and the affiliation of recipients. For example, a PhD is not an employee, is not staff, is a junior researcher, and according to the current access policy, have only view access. However, these kind of problems can be easily addressed. As I mentioned, we can provide higher level of access on a case by case basis. Just contact the help desk. Um, if a researcher is a coordinator of a Marie Curie action, we can give them higher access. We can give them more credits to use as a group within the project, many resources. Some recipients that do not have a home organization in the European Union, because we may have someone from outside the European Union being a member in some capacity of Marie Curie Action, can always self-register via the EU login, and we can also give them access to a higher group level. And the coordinator of a Marie Curie project can always log in, get credits, create groups, invite other members, other users as members. So there are ways to use the EOSC Node resources and services, even though we don't explicitly make any accommodations for this kind of grants. Now I'll try to spend some time presenting briefly what the EOSC Node, what kind of services we provide. So if you visit our landing page, right, you will see that on the menu, we have some sections. One is the Resource Hub. This is where you can find open publications, data, software, and services across Europe. Then we have the services, the EOSC Node services, which are in two categories: application services, which you can use, and infrastructure services, virtual machine, containers. Then we have a dedicated support section with an extensive training and documentation material. You can find lots of information about services and how to apply open science over there, as well as a link to the user space. This is your main dashboard once you log in. And this is the Resource Hub. Right now, we have a bit more than 180 million research objects, publications, data, software, services, what we call tools, as well as training resources. What you find over there in this search facility is a knowledge graph that it's been built by using the knowledge graph of OpenAIRE, the largest open scholarly communication resource aggregator, right? Plus European Commission's own data sources, so open data across Europe and its organizations, data from the joint research centers, etc. And you can find over there anything you want, and keep that in mind. We are an aggregator. We don't actually host all of this data you find. We will point you to the original publishers to download and use them as you see fit. Now, the application services, so simple things you can use. We're going to start from what we call the file sync and share. Think of it as your own personal cloud storage, like Google Drive, like SharePoint, any other service you may have in mind. You can obviously upload, share with others files. You have access to a productivity suite based on OpenOffice, right? Moving on, we have our interactive notebooks based on Jupyter with multiple environments and kernels supporting several different use cases, and a service that's quite beneficial to many users, what we call the large file transfer service. If you want to share securely a file like WeTransfer or whatever you want to say it with a colleague, right, you can use this service, right, which guarantees security. Then we have the infrastructure services. Essentially, we provide you access when you request it to your own OpenStack environment, and you can create as many virtual machines you want over there using various templates. You can also request virtual machines with GPUs, which are, of course, in high demand, especially the past few years. We also have our own cloud container platform. So for the more technically inclined and the ones that want to deploy some more complex container based, Kubernetes based applications. You can have your own project over there and just access and deploy anything you want. And we have a final service called the bulk data transfer service, which is meant to be used for massive amounts of data transfer between data centers in Europe. So let's say you have a very large collection of satellite imagery or CT scans or whatever. This is the service you would use to move them closer to where the computation happens. Now, this is how it looks when you log in, right? So when you press login, you just type in over there your home organization. You're gonna find your research center, you're gonna find your university, even non-university organizations, and you log in using your existing home organization credentials. That is it. In case your organization is not a member of EDU game, you can create an EU login, external link, you create your EU login, it's open to anyone, and you can log in using this service as well. Now, this is a screenshot of the user space. Once you enter, right, over there, you will see that you have access to the dashboard. And in this dashboard, you can find what you would expect to find: a welcome, your settings, who you are. You can edit your profile. You will also see your personal wallet. You can also see what services we provide. And for every service, let's say interactive notebooks, you can order it. The order is automatically processed. Some credits are deducted from your amount, and then you can start using your notebooks. Same for virtual machines. Let's say you want to order a virtual machine for an OpenStack environment for 1 month. You order it, the system informs you that, okay, this costs 100 credits. They are deducted from your account, and then following that, you're redirected to OpenStack, and you have access to your own OpenStack environment to create your virtual machine. Finally, I just want to emphasize again that there is quite a lot of training material we have produced for the EOSC Node. This is hosted in Open Plato. This is where you can also find, generally speaking, even more material for open science in general. The collection for the EOSC Node can guide you in many different manners, starting from very, very basic things, how you log in, how to use a service, up to a bit more complex things, how to build something in a container-based environment or anything else. So I think that is all. And the last slide, yeah. So thank you for your attention. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, Spiros, very much. Yeah, so if there are any questions, feel free to write them in the chat or just turn on your mic and speak up. Yes, Abul Fazil.
Thank you very much for introduction to this very interesting platform. Just one question: to be able to use in any capacity this platform, you should be affiliated with an EU organization, right? This is my understanding.
Or from an associated country, right? This falls under the standard flow. However, if you're not associated with an EU27 and associated country organization, but in some way you are affiliated with a Marie Curie action, an ongoing action, right? What you can still do is create an EU login, log in the platform, you will have view only access, and then contact our help desk and tell us, I'm this and that, and I would like to have access to in order to do something for my project.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If I may, right? If I may, I
Yeah,
would like
go for it.
to ask the participants: have you ever heard about the EOSC Federation? I'm honestly curious because we live in a bubble, the EOSC bubble, and I'm not really sure if researchers in Europe know what the EOSC Federation. I'm not even talking about the EOSC Node, right? What the EOSC Federation? Yeah, you've heard it about it. Okay, okay, yeah, but
Yes.
I. Mhm. Okay, and I see a question over there. What about the past Marie Curie fellows access to this service? Unfortunately, we cannot support it, meaning that there is not a policy or a way to know who has been a fellow in the past, right? So we cannot really do anything about it. Okay, I see. I see. Okay, so this is interesting. The US Federation definitely has some work to do in order to become more known to the research community in Europe. And okay, hopefully you're gonna be able to use the EOSC Node or spread the word in your communities, right? We will be really happy to have you in the future. And not only that, we're just the first node of the Federation. The idea is that if you work in a very specific thematic domain, it could be marine sciences, it could be atmospheric research, doesn't really matter. There will be a place for you to find, access, use services just from the fact that you are a researcher, either in Europe or funded by Europe, right, with no other further requirements or payment or whatever involved, just for the very fact that you are working and supported in Europe.
Great. So any other questions? Okay, there's one in the chat. Hi, Spiros. Do you have a sensitive storage platform? And if so, how do you charge credits on it?
That is an excellent question. So the answer is no. The reason this is a no, so we don't have what we call a trusted research environment or a sensitive or secure research environment, is because A, we are a European Commission service, and that would be against European Commission guidelines and policies. However, there are in the broader EOSC Federation such environments being built right now, and we will also have the European Health Data Space. So while the EOSC node will not provide such a facility, you will find access to these facilities from other nodes in the Federation and the European Health Data Space in the future.
Perfect. I hope that answered your question, Vinny. Anyone else? Okay. Let's comment.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You're very welcome to just follow the training material, perhaps if you want to. We also try to organize every couple of months at least Ask Me Anything sessions as a EOSC Node. And we also offer training, right? So our communication officer face is also in the call, can definitely forward you this kind of events in case you want to join and get some more practical experience.
Great. Yes, that would be very useful to everyone. Any more questions? I mean, feel free to ask. We have at least 15 minutes to spare.
This
Thank you,
is the
Faye.
next session from Faye. Yeah, thank you.
So if there are no more questions, I would like to thank Spiros for being here with us and disseminating such useful information, and also Faye, who helped us organize this webinar. Thank you very much, and you will see the recording very soon. Ciao.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.